Alright, so since this little bugger, Hermann Prime, came into the game, I've really been wondering what is the best pair for him and how to do accurate testing in order to arrive at that conclusion. When you first see this commander, I think a lot of people's first instinct was that Tamaris is going to be really, really good. You're going to stack a bunch of poison stacks, you're going to launch those poison stacks, which is going to fire more expertise skills of Hermann, and in fact, I'm guilty. I thought that too. But it turns out that that might not be the case. So that being said, we went through a ton of different dual variations and tests in order to get really the most accurate results as to what you should pair with Hermann. And while this is a Hermann-based video, I hope that this video kind of serves as a guide for other open field testing commanders in the future, especially ones with AoE. So we actually did 3 different variants of testing. One, we did the standard 1 versus 1. This is pretty common. I mean, everybody knows you pair one commander against another commander and they duel in a 1v1 scenario. But the reason why that doesn't work so well with Hermann Prime is because the more stacks that this commander receives, the more damage they do, even to its one single target. So we were like, okay, well, how do we get around this? And that's actually when we came up with 2 more tests and open field testing. So the first one is just raw output tests, okay? And I'll show footage of this on the screen, and obviously later on in the video, I'll continue to explain it. But this is just complete raw output. You're not getting targeted, and you're hitting the maxed number of targets that you can possibly hit. So we paired with YSG, we paired with Nebu, we paired with the new commander Asher Benapal, which is really nice. Turns out he's pretty good, by the way, but no spoilers, no spoilers. And so what we would do is I would group up all of my marches in one area, and then I would move my march back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, so that I was not actually targeting the Hermann that was hitting me, and then that Hermann was doing as much output as possible, and we were seeing what is just the highest DPS march, okay? And then we did our third variant of testing, which is actually the same total output test, but you're also getting targeted. So basically we paired, Hermann YSG against my Budakazuge Liang. They dueled, but while they were dueling, the YSG and the Hermann on their side was hitting as many targets as possible, which would be 3 with the Hermann active skill, and then 5 with the YSG or Zhuge Liang active skill. So that being said, we got some really, really interesting results. YSG is not dead. Tommy's not very good. Asher is going to be meta. Anyway, all this good stuff. So I hope you guys stick around in the video. It's going to be kind of a long one because we tested so many things and I have so much footage to go through. But I really hope you enjoy these tests. And then at the end where I have all my results, I'm going to show you what I will be running if I had 1 Archer March, 2 Archer Marches, and 3 Archer Marches. I think the meta now, if you're running 7 marches, is definitely at least 2 archers, probably even 3. But anyway, I'm not trying to spoil it. We're just in the intro. So let's go ahead and get into the testing and the test results. Okay, so real quick, just before we go over the footage and the actual numbers, I want to also mention a few other things. So while we did the individual tests, the total output test, and then the total output test when targeted, we also, or me, did a little bit of mathematics to see exactly what traded the best. And so what I did was I took the trade of each commander in their duels, respectively, had a plus or minus for if it traded positive or negative against the Boudica with Zhuge Liang. I then averaged those numbers to get your average cumulative, and then I also, for the targeted and not targeted test for total output, I had the duration of the battle that the actual fight went on, and that is so that you can see how long these commanders stayed alive or how long it took them to kill their target, either or. So this will definitely have implications for when they are being targeted and when they are not be. So that being said, I think that that's very important. I'll have those numbers up on the screen as we continue to go over the test results. I do also want to add in, we were not completely perfect, okay? I was the Germany civilization, he was the Ottoman civilization. What we did to counterbalance this is that I had the 5% defense token on, and he did not have any defense or offense, or attack, I guess, token on at the time. We were both using the 10% Archer skin, which is the KvK one. I currently am wearing the Cav one, but we were both wearing this skin for all the test results. And also, one last thing is that we were excuse me, not using any equipment except for one horn. You might ask why we would do a horn. Very simply, a lot of these commanders are very rage cycle dependent, and stripping that rage gain from them, which is, let's be real, many marches in the open field have a horn on them and or have a Trajan buffing them or a William buffing them or something, right? So there needs to be some sort of rage engine on there. So we did no gear, no armaments except for one horn just to kind of simulate that bonus rage. All right, so that being said, let's go hop into the 1v1 test again. So we already know that the best one is Zhuge Liang. Okay, it's pretty obvious he's the best archer commander in the game, best open field commander in the game, honestly. So we mainly tested Asher, we tested Nebuchadnezzar, we tested YSG, and we tested, actually no, we did not test Tommy because we know that she's bad in 1v1, so we were going to save her for the AoE, but we also did test Gilgamesh just as kind of an off chance. So let's hop in and see those results. Alright, so playing on the screen above me is the first test that we did. Again, we were fighting against, I was the against, the Boudica Zhuge Liang, which is kind of default, like, the best dual archer march, I guess, in the game currently. And so first off, we started with Hermann with a YSG secondary. I think this is going to be obviously a pretty popular march, as a lot of people are going to have it, and good news for you, no spoilers in the video, but it is pretty good. The first few trades were fine. We did 2 duels with this march. Again, we had a lot to do in this one arc match, so you know, the 1v1s we weren't super attentive towards, just because naturally, you know, these commanders are AoE commanders, 1v1s don't matter much, and Hermann is not the best 1v1 march anyway. Anyway, for the YSG and Hermann, we had a net total average of minus 3,191 for the Sev wound trade. So it did not beat the Zhuge Liang with Boudica, not even once, but I mean, we only ran it twice. But again, it net minus about 3.2 thousand. Alright, and next up we have Nebuchadnezzar. So this commander was pretty much always a standard for the open field and archers, and don't get me wrong, he still does a lot of AoE damage, but my goodness is he not a dual march. He got completely dunked. And when you compare to YSG, it's not looking good. So I'll let you see this dual result, but it was one of the worst dual results that we had. Now granted, you know, they have AoE, but even in the AoE test later, you'll see that it didn't go so well. So here we have the numbers. On average, Nebu paired with Hermann lost by 10,266 Sev wounds versus Boudica Zhuge Liang. So I mean, the combo just does not work well together, and I can say pretty confidently that I wouldn't recommend pairing these two commanders together in the future. Maybe a few reasons for that. I think there is no rage engine on Nebu. I think Hermann, his damage gets exemplified even more by having a rage engine like YSG's. So just in general, I just don't think they're a great pairing, especially for 1v1s. Alright, and next up, probably what a lot of you guys are looking forward to, we have the Hermann Prime paired with Ashurbanipal dual results. Again, I just want to bring caution, these are dual results. All these commanders are AoE commanders, so you're not going to get the best results from this, but I think that these are important nonetheless. And just off the rip, you can see that this is automatically doing a whole lot better than Nebu. In fact, it is almost winning. So no spoilers, we'll wait a few seconds. But I do just want to point out that we did not test Tommy in a 1v1. That's been done in other videos before. Tommy gets absolutely dunked in 1v1, so it's not really even worth testing her. And we did do a Gilgamesh test at the end of this as well that I didn't have recorded footage for, but I will show the numbers up on screen after this. So real quick, as this duel comes to an end, the Asher paired with Hermann actually traded. We did 3 different tests. So we did 2 with Hermann as a primary and 1 with Asher as a primary. Ironically, the one with Asher did the worst. That got a trade differential of minus 2,649, but I do think that if you were to run this combo in the field, you should actually have Asher as the primary, just because of the skill tree, and also you want that expertise from Ashurbanipal's skill to occur during Hermann's active skill. I think that the reason why it might have been better for this duel is because the support tree is probably pretty good into Zhuge Liang with all that skill damage. So anyway, just to give a real quick average, the average Sev wound differential with Hermann Asher versus Boudica Zhuge Liang was only 823 Sev wounds, so pretty even as far as the duel goes. And real quick, just before I hop over to the total output tests, because I did mention Gilga earlier, don't pair this guy with Gilga. It is not good. Gilga lost by an average of over 12,300 Sev wounds per duel. It's bad. Don't do it. Alright, now we're getting to the spicy stuff. So this is the part in the video that I really hope is going to kind of, I won't say revolutionize, that's a really big word, but at least change up the meta of testing commanders when they get released to the game, because I really think that going forward, especially with commanders with AoE, you really do need to test in this way in order to really grasp how these commanders function in the open field. I will also say that that I'm coughing. 1 second. Alright, I'm back. One thing that I will say is that I'm not going to match up the reports with what is on the screen, and simply what I'm saying, because we did not test them in order. We didn't go all Tommy, then all Asher, then YSG. We went back and forth because we were just so amazed at some of the results that we did them randomly. So while it plays on the screen, I'm just going to go over the results and have the numbers up on the screen as well. So first up, we have the disappointment that was Tomaris. So like a lot of people, I was thinking that this commander was going to be really good when paired with Hermann Prime. Turns out that even though it does apply more poison stacks to more targets quicker, the trade and the actual damage output just isn't there. So on average, where is my note sheet here? Here we go. It killed its march that it was targeting in 1 minute and 5 seconds and dealt an average of 62,106 Sev wounds in the differential trade as far as total output. Next up, we have Nebu. So I told you Nebu was not a great 1v1 pair, and that's fine because everyone uses him for the open field, right? So I was thinking, okay, well, he's really going to shine in this 5v5, or I guess 1v1 v5 kind of. I don't know. Well, you get what I'm saying. The total output test. And so his total output test, it took him 1 minute and 22 seconds, so it took him longer to kill the one target, and he got 75,972 Sev wound trade differential, so he did do better than Tomaris, but again, not great in the 1v1. Next up, we have Ashurbanipal, and this is where I was thinking, all right, new commander, this is going to be the best trade in the game, and it was. So Ashurbanipal took 1 minute and 5 seconds on average and dealt an average trade differential of 81,803 Sev wounds. So that is really, really strong, and I was very impressed. Now this is where it gets really weird. Then we tried YSG. And don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not going to sit here and say that YSG is the end-all be-all best commander in the game, okay? But these test results do not lie. We ran this variation, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4 different times, okay? So this was not a one-off, this was not a fluke. Not only did we have the best report for total damage output, but we had the highest average by a mile. So YSG took an average of 1 minute and 10 seconds, so not that much slower, only 5 minutes slower than Asher on average to kill its single target. And it dealt an average of 100,767 Sev wounds, which is almost 19,000 Sev wounds more than Ashurbanipal. That is when we just started taking a step back and we were like, something's wrong. So we kept running YSG, It just kept doing better than all the other marches as far as total output. So I won't make conclusions right now, but I'm saying that Hermann with YSG is very, very strong. If you are not pairing him with Zhuge Liang, I think YSG is a great alternative. Now, we did run a test with Zhuge Liang. That being said, it killed its march in 1 minute and 6 seconds. It dealt less damage than YSG in 94,607. Now, a few reasons for that. No, I'm not saying that YSG is better than Zhuge Liang and or even does more damage. Zhuge Liang needs to be the primary in the Hermann and Zhuge Liang pairing. That is just because of the skill tree and how the marquee effect works with Zhuge Liang's expertise. Also, I did get confirmation from a VIP support that Hermann's skill, actually let's hop back into game real quick. Hermann's skill that increases AoE damage. So this one does not actually increase the damage of the marquee effect from Zhuge Liang. So this skill, at the very bottom, you can see damage factor 1500, not affected by skill damage buffs. But I didn't know if this new flavor text counted as skill damage. So this says this commander's troop deals 20% more AoE skill damage when attacking other troops. So I didn't know if this was different than just a normal skill damage buff. Turns out they are the same thing, at least in regards to this one instance with Zhuge Liang's expertise and the marquee effect. So this does not actually get any benefit from Zhuge Liang's one of his skills. YSG, however, this 50% skill damage, man, when you're not getting targeted, pumped out with this skill, when it's also pumping out extra expertise skills, it goes crazy, and I'm very, very, very happy to say that YSG is very much alive and in this meta. But let's shift gears now to go over into the tests where YSG is getting targeted, and you can actually see where your open field pairings might alter a little bit here. So let's swap over to the total output test while getting targeted. All right, and so at this point in the testing, we kind of understand that this is a two-person race. We know that Zhuge Liang is the best pairing. This doesn't need to be tested. It's very obvious why Zhuge Liang is the best and would perform the best in this scenario, so we're not going to waste our valuable time on testing Zhuge Liang. He is like the Messi, Ronaldo, Tom Brady, like he's already up there, okay? And we got to test out all these up-and-coming stars that might be good. So we understand that this race is now between Ashurbanipal and YSG as far as total damage output while being targeted. So if we go ahead and look through this footage here and we look through my numbers right in front of me, which by the way, I'm going to flash up on screen what I'm using. I wrote out all my notes handheld. Anyway, going back to the numbers here. So this is when you kind of actually start to see the downfall of YSG. And this is why people don't like using them in some scenarios, and why many people, C-Will included, might opt for the Ashurbanipal pairing instead of the YSG pairing. So when targeted, YSG goes on average of a plus differential of 21,148 and also dies in a very quick 52 seconds when fighting against the Boudica Prime and Zhuge Liang. However, the Ashurbanipal trades almost 50% better. This is where it gets really interesting. So 50% better, it trades on average a 33,245 Sev wound differential positive when hitting all 5 targets, and stays alive for about another 10 to 15 seconds. So that being said, right, you now see the positives of using YSG in this pairing and using Ashurbanipal in this pairing. So if you want to go full damage, go YSG. If you want to go a little bit of march speed, utility, and survivability, you want to go Ashurbanipal. Now, as far as the test results, that's all we have. Now it's time to make our conclusions. What on earth are we using for our archer marches, and is it really as obvious as it seems? I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible, but the truth is that this is no longer an easy, simple topic. For the first time in Rise of Kingdoms history, I feel like it is really a rotating door about what is the best in Rise of Kingdoms at any given point, and it really depends on your playstyle. If you want to be more aggressive, you want to do more damage in the field, bring YSG, sit Ashurbanipal. If you're swarming stuff, you want to bring commanders like Ashurbanipal, like Henry, like Sargon, like Tariq. I wouldn't recommend Sargon for the open field for anyone, even my worst enemies. I mean, it's pretty bad. But if you're swarming stuff, you need to bring a Sargon. So it really all depends on your playstyle and how you're operating in the field. So I want to lead with that as far as what I will be running. So if I'm only doing one march, okay, one archer march, it's pretty simple. This is the only time it's going to be simple. Zhuge Liang with Hermann. I think that that's a baseline great march, right? So you just come over here, Zhuge Liang primary. You want to use, so this is the talent tree that I use for Zhuge Liang. I think because of the Hermann's extra active skill, I will probably end up getting rid of these points and going back into Rejuvenate and Feral Nature. There's a reason for that, why I don't have Rejuvenate. This is the reason, but that's a video for another time. Anyway, so we just kind of compare and contrast with Hermann. Obviously, they're both great commanders, and they pair really well together as the one march. Now, if you're bringing two marches, there are two different. Can you be quiet, Herman? Thank you. All right, there are two different variations that you can bring. One, the one that Seawill recommended, and I think it is a very strong march. You bring Zhuge Liang with Hermann, and then you bring Boudica with Ashurbanipal. I think that is really, really, really good. If you want to do a little bit more damage but have a little less survivability on that Boudica, you can bring YSG. Again, you're going to lose some march speed. If I had the choice, if what I was doing, I would probably sit the YSG for Ashurbanipal. But again, you can be aggressive and do what you want. Another way that you can run two archer marches is actually go all out damage, right? So you pair Hermann Prime with YSG secondary, and then you can have Zhuge Liang with Ashurbanipal just for maximum AoE carnage, okay? That might actually get you the best trade results in the open field. If you're not being targeted, certainly will get you the best trade results, but obviously Hermann YSG is going to be targeted. It's going to be pretty squishy. And then you're benching your Boudica. It doesn't have AoE. Again, we're talking about field. I think if you're swarming stuff, I think if you're bringing a balanced march and you're sticking on to one target more, or your playstyle is very aggressive and you sit on one target for a long time and your marches take damage, but you're dealing a lot of damage, like you need the Boudica, you can bench the YSG, but like I said, it's really dependent on what you want. So again, option 1 for two archer marches is ZL with Hermann and Boudica with Asher or YSG. And option 2 is Hermann with YSG and Boudica with Zhuge Liang or Zhuge Liang with Asher. So those are your two options. And then as far as if you're bringing three archer marches to the field, again, this is going to depend on what you're doing. If you're swarming, you're going to want to bring your Henry out from the bench, right? Like, these are things that you got to think about when you're doing this stuff. But as far as raw trades in the open field, if you're just going for archer damage, as much damage as possible, you want to bring as much AoE as you can, right? So you're bringing Hermann with YSG, you're bringing Boudica with Ashurbanipal, and you're bringing Zhuge Liang with Nebuchadnezzar. Those are your three marches that you're going to bring for the open field trades. Again, you can bench the YSG for whatever his name is for, oh my goodness, for Henry, thank you. And then, you know, you can make other choices based on your playstyle, but generally, that is what I would recommend. Again, and just to recap real quick, because I know that some of you are going to yell at me that you should put Asher behind Hermann and yada yada yada. Okay, if you find your Hermann getting targeted a lot, great. Put the YSG behind the Boudica and make the Asher come behind the Hermann, so you end up with the Hermann with Asher, Boudica, YSG, and Zhuge Liang with Nebu. And again, if you find your just YSG has a target wherever it goes, and you want to run something a little more tanky instead of the YSG behind the Boudica, put in the dang Artemisia. But I don't like Artemisia. That's a personal thing. It's tanky, yes, doesn't do nearly enough damage, and it buffs the target you're hitting. So I generally stay away from that. But again, you can make those changes. It's up to you, and that's what I mean. Like, this is a great meta. It's fun to be playing Rise of Kingdoms. You really get to shape your account how you want to. If you've got the funds and you spend a lot and you have all these commanders. If you don't, then very, very, very long video short, your YSG is still good. Hermann YSG, just watch it in the field, okay? Oh, man. All right, guys, I think all in all, that kind of wraps up the whole video. I've been sitting here editing this thing now for about 3 to 4 hours. It did take a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of math. I am not an Excel wizard. I showed you guys my sheet earlier, but I've got this. I've got all the averages. I'm taking notes. I'm writing everything down. I truly am trying to give you guys the best information possible, and I think this kind of testing really helps me verbalize what I'm saying. Like you guys can see where I'm getting my thoughts from. Hermann YSG did so well when it wasn't being targeted, and I know that my skill level in the open field will be able to take advantage of that raw output damage, even if it's not as overall balanced as an Ashurbanipal secondary, which is why I will probably be running Hermann and YSG in the open field, and then pair the Boudica with Zhuge Liang together because I do not have Asher yet. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. Please leave a like on this video, share it if you think that the testing was good, if you think my recommendations are good. Again, I'm all for feedback. Just make sure it's positive, make sure it's all uplifting. I don't need toxicity in the comments here. But again, Happy New Year's to everybody who celebrates, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.